Blood stained the hospital sheets as another cramp seized my body. The doctor's words echoed in my mind. I'm sorry, Mrs. Winters. There's no heartbeat. Your body is already beginning to miscarry. 12 weeks. I'd made it 12 weeks before my baby's heart stopped beating. My husband David held my hand as my body went through the cruel process of letting go. We'd tried for 3 years to conceive, gone through 2 rounds of IVF, and this pregnancy had felt like our miracle. My phone buzzed on the bedside table. Through tears, I saw a text from my mother-in-law. Patricia Winters. Cleaned out your tacky jewelry. The house looks better already. Attached were photos of empty jewelry boxes and my mother's mahogany chest, the one she'd brought from India when she married my father, sitting by the trash bins outside our house. David, I whispered, showing him the phone. His face went white. She didn't. Tell me she didn't touch your mother's collection. But the photos confirmed it. Every piece was gone. The emerald set my mother wore to state dinners, the pearl necklace from her wedding, the Cartier bangles my father had given her for each of their anniversaries, all of it. Dismissed as tacky by a woman who thought costume jewelry from department stores was the height of elegance. Call her, I managed between contractions. Now. David stepped into the hallway, and I could hear his raised voice through the door. Meanwhile, I texted our housekeeper, Murray, who'd worked for my family for 20 years. Murray, did Mrs. Winters take jewelry from the house? Oh, Mrs. Isabella. I tried to stop her. She came with a moving truck, said she was helping you declutter. She took everything from your mother's room. I called Mr. David but couldn't reach him. I'm so sorry. The next contraction hit hard, and I cried out, not just from physical pain but from the realization that while I was losing my child, Patricia was erasing the last tangible pieces of my mother. David returned, his face grim. She took everything to Hartman's auction house, says she's doing us a favor, getting rid of immigrant junk before the baby arrives. His voice cracked. She doesn't know about the miscarriage. I finished. We'd planned to tell her after the first trimester. Now, there was nothing to tell. Dr. Martinez entered to check on me. Mrs. Winters, you're progressing, but it could be several more hours. Is there anything I can do to make you more comfortable? Can you recommend a good lawyer? I asked, deadly serious. She blinked in surprise, then noticed my tear-stained face staring at the phone. Family troubles during loss are unfortunately common. Focus on your health first. Everything else can wait. But I couldn't wait. Those pieces weren't just jewelry, they were my mother's legacy. She'd been the daughter of Indian diplomats, married my American father when he was a young Foreign Service officer, and spent 30 years as an ambassador's wife, collecting meaningful pieces from every posting. David, go to Hartman's. Stop the sale. Bella, I should stay with you. Go, I insisted. Those pieces are all I have left of her. Please. He kissed my forehead and left, alone except for the nurses who checked on me periodically. I labored through the physical process of loss while scrolling through photos of my mother wearing those tacky pieces. There she was at a state dinner in Delhi, wearing the ruby set that had been in her family for generations. Another photo showed her in Vienna, my father fastening the Cartier necklace he'd bought her for their 20th anniversary, the emeralds gleaming at a White House reception. Each piece told a story, held a memory. Patricia had never understood. To her, jewelry was about showing off. About making sure everyone knew how much her husband spent. She couldn't fathom that some pieces held value beyond their price tags, that they were threads connecting me to my heritage, my parents' love story, my identity. My phone rang. David sounded breathless. I'm at Hartman's. You're not going to believe this. When I told them who you were, the entire atmosphere changed. The owner himself came out. What do you mean, Bella? He recognized your mother's collection immediately. Apparently, several pieces were featured in a Sotheby's catalog about important diplomatic jewelry. He wants to know if we're really selling the Ambassador Rao's collection. Despite everything, I almost smiled. My mother would have loved that, being remembered not as Mrs. Winters, but as Ambassador Rao, the first Indian woman to serve as ambassador to Austria. Is Patricia there? Oh yes, she's having what can only be described as a meltdown. When Mr. Hartman started authenticating pieces, he asked her how she acquired them. She said they were family pieces she inherited. He asked which family, since he knew for a fact that the ruby set belonged to the Rao family of Jaipur. A contraction hit, and I breathed through it before responding. What happened then? She tried to bluff, said she was Priya Rao's daughter. That's when Hartman pulled out his phone and showed her a photo from last year's embassy reunion. You were wearing the emerald set, standing next to the current ambassador. He recognized you immediately. David, I need those pieces back. Already handled. Hartman refused to accept them once he realized they were stolen. He's actually calling the police. Bella, some of these pieces. He's estimating the collection at over $2 million. The Cartier pieces alone are worth a fortune. $2 million. Patricia had thrown $2 million worth of jewelry in garbage bags and hauled them to an auction house while calling them tacky immigrant junk. There's more, David continued. Hartman wants to know if you're Ambassador Rao's daughter, the one who wrote the book about diplomatic families. He has a first edition. His daughter used it for her thesis on multicultural identity in foreign service families. I closed my eyes, remembering the hours I'd spent writing that book. My mother by my side, sharing stories and experiences. Patricia had called it navel-gazing nonsense when it was published. Tell him yes. And David? Thank him for protecting my mother's legacy. He's actually insulted on your behalf. He keeps muttering about people who can't recognize genuine artistry, and Cartier would roll over in his grave. The irony wasn't lost on me. Patricia, who constantly bragged about her connections and breeding, had just been exposed as a thief and a fraud to one of the city's most prestigious auction houses. The hospital room door opened. NDR. Martinez returned. How are we doing? Getting there, I said. Then to David, I have to go. Don't let Patricia leave with anything. The police just arrived. I'll handle it. The next few hours blurred together. The physical process of miscarriage is cruel in its ordinariness, your body going through motions it thinks are normal while your heart breaks with each cramp. The nurses were kind, bringing me ice chips and adjusting my position, but nothing could ease the dual loss I was experiencing. By evening, it was over, my baby was gone, and I lay in an exhausted haze while they cleaned up and prepared to move me to a recovery room. That's when David returned, looking haggard. How are you? He asked, taking my hand. Empty, I admitted. How's the jewelry situation? He pulled a chair close to my bed. Your mother's collection is safe. Everything has been returned to our house, and Marie is cataloging it all. But Bella, there's something else. What? Patricia didn't just take your mother's jewelry. She also took pieces from the safe, your engagement ring upgrade I was planning to surprise you with for our anniversary, the cufflinks my grandfather left me, and about $10,000 in cash we kept for emergencies. I stared at him. She robbed us. While I was losing our baby, your mother robbed us. The police want to press charges. Grand theft, given the value. Mr. Hartman is willing to testify about her attempting to sell stolen goods. And, he hesitated. What? This isn't her first time. Hartman made some calls. She's tried to sell items at 3 other auction houses in the past year. Each time, she's been turned away because she couldn't prove provenance. One was a painting that belonged to my aunt before she died. Another was silverware from my grandmother's estate that was supposed to go to my cousin Sarah. The pattern became clear. Patricia had been stealing from family members for years, targeting items she thought wouldn't be missed or whose owners couldn't fight back. But she'd made a fatal error with my mother's collection. She'd assumed that because my mother was Indian, her jewelry must be costume pieces, not understanding that diplomatic families often accumulated significant collections through decades of international postings. What do you want to do? David asked. I thought about Patricia's text, sent while I was miscarrying. The casual cruelty of cleaned out your tacky jewelry. The dismissal of my heritage as something that made the house look worse. The entitlement of entering our home while we were at the hospital and taking what she pleased. Press charges, I said firmly. All of them. David nodded. I agree. I've already told her she's no longer welcome in our home. When she tried to play the "but I'm your mother" card, I reminded her that mothers don't steal from their children while they're in the hospital. A knock on the door interrupted us. A woman in a business suit entered, looking apologetic. Mrs. Winters? I'm Detective Sarah Palmer. I'm so sorry to intrude during this difficult time, but I need to ask you some questions about the theft. Please, come in. Detective Palmer was efficient but compassionate. She took my statement, documented the photos Patricia had sent, and showed me pictures from Hartman's of my mother's collection spread across their authentication table. Mrs. Winters, the auction house estimates the total value at $2.3 million. That makes this a significant felony. Your mother-in-law is currently in custody. She's arrested? David looked shocked. She became combative when we tried to question her, threw a paperweight at Mr. Hartman and accused him of being part of an immigrant conspiracy to frame her. We had no choice. I laughed, actually laughed, for the first time that day. The image of Patricia, always so concerned with appearances, being arrested in Hartman's auction house while ranting about conspiracies was absurdly satisfying. Detective Palmer continued. We've also connected her to several other thefts. It seems she's been funding her lifestyle by stealing from family members. Your case is just the most valuable and well-documented. After she left, David and I sat in silence. The room felt heavy with loss, our baby, the illusion of his mother as a difficult but ultimately harmless woman, the family unity we'd tried so hard to maintain. "I'm sorry," he finally said. "About the baby, about my mother, about all of it. The baby isn't anyone's fault," I said. "But your mother, how did we not see this?" "Because we wanted to believe the best. Because she always had excuses. Because we were too busy with our own lives to notice the pattern." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo from Mr. Hartman of my mother's emerald set, beautifully lit and arranged. "Mrs. Winters, I wanted you to see that your mother's collection is safe. These pieces deserve to be treasured, not just for their monetary value but for their cultural and historical significance. If you ever consider donating any pieces for exhibition, please let me know. And my deepest condolences on your loss, both of them." He'd signed it with his personal number and a postscript. "Your mother-in-law claimed these were cheap Indian knockoffs. I take great pleasure in informing you that the Cartier pieces alone are insured for $800,000. The next morning, I was released from the hospital. David drove me home in silence, both of us dreading what we'd find. But Marie had worked magic. The house was spotless, and my mother's jewelry was arranged in the library, each piece carefully placed on velvet displays she'd borrowed from a local jeweler. "Oh, Marie," I breathed, tears starting again. "Your mother would be so proud," she said, hugging me gently. "You protected her legacy even while going through such pain." The legal proceedings moved quickly, faced with overwhelming evidence and multiple victims coming forward. Patricia pled guilty to avoid a trial. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution to all her victims. The family imploded. David's siblings, discovering their own missing items, turned against Patricia completely. His father, finally free from her influence, filed for divorce and revealed that she'd been stealing from him for years too, selling his family heirlooms and gaslighting him when he couldn't find them. "She told me I was getting senile," he confided during one visit. "Made me believe I was losing my mind when I couldn't find my father's watch or my mother's china. Turns out she'd sold them all." The story made the society pages. Diplomat's daughter exposes $1 million theft ring. Patricia's mugshot accompanied articles about how she'd tried to fence historical jewelry while her daughter-in-law miscarried. The scandal destroyed her social standing, the one thing she'd valued above all else. 6 months later, David and I attended an exhibition at the Diplomatic Museum. I'd loaned them several pieces from my mother's collection for a display about women in diplomacy. Standing before the display case, seeing my mother's jewelry alongside her portrait and biography, I felt a sense of peace. "She would have loved this," David said, wrapping an arm around me. "She would have," I agreed, "especially the part where Patricia's in federal prison." He chuckled. "Mom always said Patricia was a small-minded woman. Turns out she was also a criminal." The museum director approached us. "Mrs. Winters, the response to your mother's pieces has been extraordinary. We've had requests from 3 universities to include them in research about diplomatic gift-giving traditions. Would you consider writing a companion piece to your book?" I touched my still flat stomach, where we'd just confirmed a new pregnancy was growing. This baby wouldn't replace the one we'd lost, but it represented hope, continuity, a future. "Yes," I said, "I think my mother's story deserves to be told in full." That night, I sat in my library surrounded by my mother's jewelry, writing the first chapter of what would become Gems of Diplomacy, a daughter's memoir. Each piece sparked a memory, a story, a lesson my mother had taught me about bridging cultures with grace and dignity. Patricia had called them tacky immigrant junk, but they were so much more. They were symbols of a life lived across continents, of love that transcended borders, of a woman who'd represented her adopted country while never forgetting her roots. And now they were mine to protect, to cherish, and eventually to pass on to my own daughter, who would arrive healthy and perfect 7 months later. We named her Priya, after my mother, and on her first birthday, I fastened a tiny gold bangle around her wrist, the same one my mother had worn as a baby in Jaipur, the one Patricia had thrown in a garbage bag, the one that connected my daughter to generations of strong women who knew their worth couldn't be measured in dollars or social standing. Patricia serves her time in minimum security, writing letters no one answers. The woman who'd spent her life obsessed with appearances is now known as the mother-in-law who robbed her miscarrying daughter-in-law. No amount of social climbing can overcome that fall. And somewhere, I like to think my mother is laughing at the beautiful irony of it all, her tacky jewelry exposing the real trash in our family.